I've got a whole lot of jokes stored in the comedy corner of my brain that need the right situation and circumstances to be able to use them. I remember once I was having a conversation with a bunch of people about breakfast, and somebody said to me, "What do you have for breakfast?" And I said, "Oh, I usually have a bowl of muesli." And he said, "Muesli?" And I said, "No, measly. It's just like muesli, only much, much smaller." I reckon I'd been sitting on that one for about 20 years. And I've never been in a conversation about breakfast since. I've only ever got to use it once. Once when I was out shopping, I decided to get a hot cooked chicken. I pointed to the one I wanted, and the girl behind the counter picked it up with her tongs, and one of its legs fell off. She said, "Oh, sorry, is that all right like that?" And I was just about to say, "Hey lady, I want to eat it, not dance with it." And just at the last moment I thought, no, that sounds really sarcastic. She'll probably be more offended than amused, so I didn't say it. I said, "No, that'll be fine, thanks, just the way it is." So she put it in the bag and I took it away, and as I was going away I was thinking, no, I've been waiting 30 years to use that joke. The chance will never come up again. I blew it. They say he who laughs last laughs longest. I say he who laughs last is the slowest. I was probably a teenager when I heard the joke, "How do you get down off an elephant?" You don't get down off an elephant, you get down off a duck. Ha! Yeah, that's pretty good, I thought. Then one day I'm watching an infomercial on TV, and they were telling me how the best pillows are made with duck's down, particularly down from the eider duck. And I suddenly thought, you get down off a duck. Of course, I get it. Except it was about 25 years later. It had taken me ages to get that joke. I think that's the longest joke it's ever taken me to get. A South African friend of mine once told me a joke that was something about women and Volkswagens. I can't remember how it went, but it was something like, "What's the difference between a Volkswagen Beetle and a girl?" I said, "I don't know," and he prattled off something in Afrikaans and started laughing heartily. "I don't speak Afrikaans." I said, "What does that mean?" And he looked all serious and said, it's not funny in English. Once the subject of the stitch bird came up in conversation. As it does, my friend Nick said, "I used to know a joke about the stitch bird. I can't remember how it goes, but the punchline is, 'Stitch bird my arse.'" We thought that was so hilarious we didn't actually need to know the joke. We decided that the punchline just stood up pretty well on its own. There's a famous joke called The Aristocrats that's never told in public and should never be told in public, and I'm not going to tell it to you. When I was working as a movie extra with 400 other extras who all regarded themselves as professional entertainers who were just between proper jobs, and they spent the whole time telling jokes. I reckon I've heard every joke that there is. I'd be standing around with my mates and someone would approach us, and rather than saying, "G'day, how you going?" like most Australians do, they would say, "Have you heard the one about," and then they'd recite some joke that we'd heard hundreds of times before. And our response would be, "Actually, no, we haven't heard that one today." This guy gets sentenced to life in prison, and he gets thrown into a prison that's full of people who are serving life sentences. He's only been there for a couple of days, and he's out in the recreation yard, and everybody's moping around looking a bit bored, and somebody calls out, 86, and everybody in the yard cracks up laughing. He thinks this is a bit odd, and then somebody says, 122, and they all crack up laughing again. And he's starting to think this is really odd. And he turns to another prisoner and says, "I don't understand what's going on here. What's everybody laughing at?" And the other prisoner says, "Oh, look, we've all been here for so long, we all know all the jokes. So rather than reciting them, we've just numbered them. It saves a lot of time." He said, "Why don't you have a go?" So he says, 92. He gets no response. Everyone looks very unimpressed, and he says to the other guy, "What was wrong with that?" And he said, "Oh, look, I think it's just the way you tell it. Why don't you have another go?" So he said, 136, and everybody just cracks up. They're slapping their knees, they're rolling around on the ground, they're splitting their sides. It's an absolute riot for about 10 minutes. When it finally calms down, he says, "Wow, I wasn't expecting that sort of response." And the other guy said, "They haven't heard that one before." Stitch bird my ass.